Ooh, we're back, baby. Horns up, talking Texas podcast. Fisher DeSablos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider, gentlemen. We are 4-0. Good to see everybody. It feels good. Defense looks great. Run game looks fantastic. As always, Quan, you are boots on the ground. What's the vibe like right now in Austin with Quinn maybe coming back from injury, trying to work his way back? Obviously, we have the bye week coming up next week. We have Mississippi State, who's 1-3. They've been playing pretty pitiful as of late, but Shapen, their quarterback, formerly of Baylor, knows us. Levy, their head coach, formerly the OC at Oklahoma, know us. So no game's a gimme as we head into our first game of SEC play. What's the vibe like right now in Austin? How are people feeling about Arch and maybe the optimism that we could see Quinn at all this week before we go to OU in 2 weeks?
Man, we talked a lot about what Quinn's earned and how good he's done and how much we appreciate it. But at the same time, we're number one because we have a backup who will be starting on 80% of the rosters in the country, maybe more. But Arch, to speak about last game, he showed some of the rookie/young stuff. And a buddy of mine, he owns a lot of salt traders and he's involved with all kinds of businesses named Bill McKean. Literally at lunch today, he pulled me aside. He's like, "What you think, man?" I was like, "Of course, we're 4-0. Hell, I'm happy we're number one." He said, "I have one comment other than being extremely happy about that is I'm still equally fired up about Arch, but I appreciate Quinn more." And I go, "Dude, you just made my day." I was like, "Listen, I am insanely fired up about Arch. We're so fortunate to have him on the roster and to have that type of guy to come in when Quinn goes down. But I'm also insanely appreciative of who I believe is one of the top two, potentially maybe the top quarterback in the country, and Quinn, who had 2 touchdowns when he went down. And he just, again, we've said it a million times, makes it look easy. And so that's like almost looked down upon because it's not the effort, it's effortless. And he's just that freaking good. And so I think that's the vibe. I think, everybody's still, there's always going to be a Manning mania. It kind of comes with, his family, and they've earned the right to kind of do that. But in some of the stuff we've seen, even with Quinn, I mean, Arch throwing phenomenal deep balls. We freaking just launching that son of a gun 60 down there and catching them, and everybody loves the deep ball. But I think there's that appreciation for what Quinn does, his experience, his leadership. And I'm gonna tell you, my goosebumps moment didn't happen watching the game. Watched that, it was awesome or whatever. But what I didn't see, even being present, was the Quinn getting the team fired up.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, I was like, that maturation, because Quinn's actually, maybe all the commercials, maybe all the stuff, he's growing up, he's evolving as a leader and as a player, as a vocal leader. And I think they need that. And when I laugh because I hear Sark talk about all these leaders, the attentiveness, you saw Jade Barron, number 1 rated DB in the SEC right now, right there. I mean, cheesing from ears to ears, fired up for Quinn. You saw offense, defense, special team players listening, getting fired up, Arch being one of them. That's the stuff you like to see. That's what gave me goosebumps about the whole freaking night. I did not think they would cover, if I'm being honest. 46 points. It's crazy to cover. And they found a way to do that again. So that's the vibe, man. People are fired the freak up. They're one of the probably 5 teams who've covered every game this year. And they're playing good and they're growing. It wasn't perfect, but it was exactly what it needed to be. And people are freaking fired up in town. You cannot go into a restaurant, home, campus, or work and not hear the conversation walking in. Your team's looking pretty good. And I'm like, you damn right they are. So it's prideful around here.
Quan, do you remember what it was like being on campus as a student when your team was this good and how students reacted to you? Because when I was on campus, the team was not good, so the players did not get a lot of love, right? Like it's like, oh, cool, like so and so is in my class, like no big deal, like the team is 5-7,
Nick, that's a trick question. I'm gonna tell you why, because I'm older now, and there's some things I won't even mention on the radio. But being the national champions, it comes with perks, and it is awesome. But no,
There's
man,
one reason to get kicked off the radio. I feel it could be one of them stories.
oh, bro,
Well, I mean, like,
bro, thank
were you
the
guys like always
Lord.
mobbed by students, like when you were
Dude,
walking
thank the
around?
Lord there's not cameras back in our day. But and not in a bad way, but it truly was in a give love. Yeah, dude. I believe that I laugh because y'all joke when we first got to know each other that I don't know a lot about sports betting and all of that. And now it's legal. It wasn't back then, but I literally leave the classroom and a couple of guys be like, "So we're gonna cover?" And I'm laughing. I'm like, "We're good." And I would get those questions, and then just I'll tell you what was so different about it too is Moncrief was all sport. So I'm still so close to so many, student athletes, male and female, from other sports because we were at the trainer together. We were in the weight room certain times together. So all of it was so cool, like Kat and everybody else that we can talk to or about it. It was such a family deal of pulling for each other. And then on campus in general, no, bro, they knew. I mean, when we had the pep rallies for Texas OU or Texas A&M, because we still played them and we had all that, man, there's out of the 52,000, I think it was ranked 51, 50,000. Bro, there was, when you're winning on that level, you see this type of attendance. The doors open 2 hours before. They've been open in about 2 hours and 15 minutes because I go in super early and there's students running and going, by the way, it's not cool. It's burning up and they're like, first come, first serve. We want lower levels. We want this. And so they're coming early. They are staying late. They're having a good time. But on campus was pretty freaking phenomenal where they're absolutely, talking about a play you made or saying, "Hey, Hook'em, good luck this week. We're gonna be there. Hey, I asked for Christmas to go to the bowl game." And it's just, I've talked about it before, but when I think about it holistically, I want that experience for everybody. It's so freaking
Mm.
fun. It's so awesome in this city on that campus. And all this, I mean, not to bring up some negative, but there's been a lot of crap on that campus, the last few months. When you win, when you're number one, when you're in the mix, all of that goes away.
Yeah.
People are focused on real things that are fun and positive and adding value to their life versus stuff that half of us can't control, and we can hope for it to get better, but it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
Yeah,
beauty of
and
sports is it unites people, right? Especially finding the common love for the Longhorns. I mean, what's better than that, you know? It's
Heck
it's
yeah.
uh it's kind of like a blessing and a curse for I feel like current students because we're so good that the demand is so high. Both of my brothers go to UT. One's a freshman, and one's a sophomore and one's a junior. And like there's no guarantee that they get tickets. Like you buy big ticket and then you have to like at like 12 p.m. on that Friday or something or that Thursday, you have to log in and claim your tickets. And if you miss the boat, then you're shit out of luck, you know?
Yeah.
That's
No,
not even
yeah.
that's
something. That's not
crazy.
even something we had to think about.
No.
Yeah.
That's so wild to me.
I
I had
the
front
thing that
row
pops
seats
in.
every game. My issue was like, am
Yeah,
I gonna
right.
fight? Am I gonna spar with the Delts to get a front row seat like at the game? That was like the real issue I had, honestly. Not getting a ticket was not even a thought.
Fellas, there was a line of students at our spring games. I mean, the line was down Dean Keaton because they wanted the better. And by the way, and that's also free. And they knew that it was going to be a really big crowd, and they wanted to get the better seats and all that. But no, dude, that same issue. I mean, I would get so many classmates going. They literally like, I didn't get in. I want to go. My friends got in. I mean, it was some real stuff, and if I happen to have some extra ones, I became popular because I'd be like, "Hey, my family's not coming this week. I have four." Oh, dude, and it was awesome. It was pretty great. But no, dude. That issue, though, we had those same issues back in the day, and the truth of the matter is, you think about the logistics of season ticket holders. Well, we've sold out like crazy. Like every single ticket of season ticket holders sold out. But that doesn't happen if you don't have, like you said, the student packages sell out too, and they absolutely do and did and all the above. So it's back to where it should be, and I think it's going to be for a long time with the depth and the roster. Sark and staff is landing.
I think one thing that's underrated, I don't often think about, maybe I think about more now living in California, and not that I talk to a lot of high schoolers out here, but the high school experience when you grow up in Texas, and 90% of the students that are undergrads at the university are from the state of Texas, grew up going on Friday nights to watch their team play football in high school. And all the football players, from a status standpoint, like, we can say that doesn't matter, but in high school, it definitely matters. They're the top guys. They're the top dogs. They're the people that other kids in high school look to as leaders, as the cool kids, as the athletes. Like, that's a real thing. And that aura just dissipated when we got to college because it didn't matter because we weren't good. And that contagion, like that contagiousness of being good, translates to everyone. We know how many students there are at the university and how many of them don't really care about football. But when everyone around you starts to care because we're so good and we're in the SEC, then you start to care. It's just like this. I mean, we're human, right? It's like this hive mentality. Josh, I can only wonder what it was like if you're thinking, oh, Texas, like Friday Night Lights, football, it's everything for these people. And then you get there and you're like, wait a minute.
Jealous, dude.
Yeah, and then you got there and I'm sure everyone's like, no, man, we don't really care because we're not that good right now. But it's all rowing in the right direction. And I think it's the perfect place for things to start with some momentum. Just like, the other SEC towns, sure, great, but they're not Texas. They're not the state of Texas. They're not in the capital city of Texas, one of the biggest states in the United States, and always has been known and acknowledged as the best football state in the country. And so I think it's just what?
It's a hilarious debate. Like, my New York friends one time, I remember, were debating like, oh, New Jersey football could keep up with Texas.
My God.
And I don't worry. I stepped in. I was like, look, guys, like, I'm still from Long Island, but I live in Texas now. And I'm going to tell you flat out, like, I'm one of the taller guys in our friend group. You just go down south and you guys are all like, kissing nipples. Like, these guys are huge. They're just so much bigger than us. I want to say, because we were discussing on our sister show, Q, like, we were talking about like ranking MLB teams after the season. And Toss was posing his questions and Nick and I were going on the rank. And one of the ways we were dissecting these teams is how good they are versus how good they were supposed to be, or how bad they are versus how bad they were supposed to be. And I think going to get back to our team and this, one of the good things is, because it was a bad thing before, we were always supposed to be so good. And so when we were bad, it made it just that much worse. Like, so many times we were supposed to be back. And then when we weren't, it made it that much worse. Which, when you tell me that, hey, at the spring game, the lines are out the door, people can't get in. And by the way, that same team, that same program, 5, 6 weeks, 7 weeks later, or I'm probably actually longer than that. The spring game's in the spring. Months later, that team's 4-0. It makes it that much better. Not because everyone was right to have the hype. Oh, the lines are out the door. We want to get into this game. Guess what? Everyone who was on those lines at the game, yes, the players get the credit, but they give the fans back their due because they showed out and made that worthwhile. Like, the spring game, lining up for the spring game doesn't mean anything if you're Florida State.
Right.
It means, like, in the expectations, you're a top 10 team, and now all of a sudden you can't stop a nosebleed. Your quarterback can't throw it as far, downfield as 5 yards. Like, it's a disaster over there. You're the team that wanted to get into the college football playoff last year, threw a stink about it, and this is how you come back and show up. This team, we were this close. We were an 80 Mitchell catch, like, jump ball away from going to the Natty. Well, guess what? There was hype about us going into this year, and we're living up to it. That's why the 4-0 is so much sweeter. It's so much sweeter because we were supposed to be this good, and we are. I'm not saying we're LeBron James, but in the LeBron James argument that, again, on our sister show, Toss and I have gotten to a number of times. One of the biggest arguments about LeBron is LeBron was supposed to be this good. And guess what? He was. How often in sports is something supposed to be this good and it isn't? Like, why is Shohei Ohtani? Yes, what he's doing is amazing, but he was supposed to be worth $70 million this year. And guess what? That dude was worth more than $70 million, man. Like this team is
Well,
supposed
and
to.
to take that to another level is when you go back to our national championship, it was number one versus number two. And I still don't know if that was the only time that's happened, but I know it hadn't happened a lot because one of the teams lost and it changed the game, and another team was good. But USC started that year number one. We started that year number two. We both got to the national championship, and it was a freaking epic. So going back to taking that to another level of about Texas, one, that's why nationally that game is known as the best. You hear non-Longhorns say that's the best game I've ever watched. You hear as soon as an Aggie say, it pains me to say it, but that's the best game I've ever watched. And so think about where we are now from a 4-0 standpoint. I've gotten 7 texts from guys from Houston, Waco, Longview, Dallas, and the Valley. Hey, so where do you tailgate before? And I go, well, hold on. You went to Lamarck, or you went to UTRGV. You went to, oh, no, dude. I love good football. I'm coming to see the Longhorns. I'm coming to see us in the SEC. So when you're that good, going back to that's what we do in Texas high school. I have people, Mark's 1,500 people, and we average 8,000 people at a playoff game. Well, that's because everybody else is coming to watch. They want to come see this and that. That is the culture. That's why it's so hard for another state to argue you're better than that is what we do. Then now you have it. The only positive thing about Jerry's world is we have the state championship there, and you'll have a 2A game with 35,000. You'll have a 6A game with 65,000 people there because that's the culture. That's the football mindset. And so now you have the flagship school, and let's be real. To be the only thing I say good about the Aggies. If the Aggies have a great season and they're ever in this position, their alumni base alone will fill that place up 2 times over. But one of the Aggies' biggest hang up with us is, yes, it's going to be our alumni base, but we love our T-shirt fans who love the burnt orange, and they're in there and they're supporting. And so that's why it's exactly what you're talking about. We did have the hype, but we also have had about not 10, not last year, but we've had before last year a lot of years of not living up to it. So now that we're back where we need to be, competing nationally, taking it to another level, being number one. Sark is way ahead of schedule. It feels good, it looks good, and the product on the field is just stupid good. And so we're in the top 10 in every category on the planet.
That's crazy.
Potentially top 5 on offense and defense. So when that's rolling, man. Oh, and by the way, the last few games with our backup quarterback, who is we have our starting and our backup quarterback in the Heisman odds. Like that is insane. And now again, I don't think either one. I mean, it's going to be hard because of the injury and all of that, but nobody's arguing. They're like, I mean, Arch did go 4-1. He did go 4 touchdowns here. Quinn had 2 touchdowns before he went out. They're even our haters are like rolling their eyes, but they're not trying to dare make an argument.
Right. There's no dispute. Yeah.
There's no dispute. They're like, oh, I freaking hate when y'all are good. Damn, I like watching Arch. And that's really y'all get on my nerves. Quinn getting fired up, man. We're in trouble. And that's really how they're looking at it.
Resounding media opinion that we have the best backup in college football, like point blank, period. I heard you're talking about that game against the Trojans. I heard Matt Leinart say this past week, if his son is a young, talented high school QB who will get an offer somewhere and go play in college and be a good player, I assume. And he was asked the question, who are the 2 coaches that you would want your kid to play for right now as a QB? And he said, Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin. Of course, 2 guys that he's been a part of their systems before, so he knows them better than Lincoln, and he admitted that. But that guy's like an all-time Trojan, for him to say that.
Dude, I don't care. That's huge,
It's huge.
And he's not wrong.
No. Yeah. No debate.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to go play for Sark? The thing about Sark is it's converting. Like the stars and like, dude, how many times have we been on here in years past where it's like, oh, we got a 5-star this, what? But the unfortunate for the kid, again, going back to it, the hype doesn't match the production. So every transfer that he brought in, it's a masterclass. Every recruit that he's brought in, Leona Lafau, Anthony Hill, like Colin Simmons, Ethan, find me a guy on our roster right now who's playing that he has not squoze the juice out of perfectly. Like he is getting the maximum out of every guy. So if you're telling me, yo, hey, my kid is only going to want to play for Sark or Lane Kiffin, take my burnt orange off me. How can I argue that? He's getting playing. Freshmen are playing. If you are just because you are a freshman doesn't mean you won't play. How's Wingo been? Fantastic. Colin Simmons, fantastic. Malik Muhammad's on his second year starting. By the way, he's a sophomore. Like Anthony Hill is our best defensive player, home wrecker, sophomore, played last year. Best player will play, man. He doesn't care about that. He's trying to win football games. He's not trying to appease parents. He's trying to win football games. And he's crushing it and getting the most out of his guys.
And they respect that culture. I mean, ultimately, back when Mac Brown was at his height, I was at all the freshmen. He's getting all the best guys. I remember telling Jamal, I was like, listen, he was like, oh, coming from Port Arthur, I was an All-American. And I said, Jamal, as an older guy coming back, everybody on this field was an All-American. Just get to work. I was like, just get to work. And he clearly he got to work and he balled out, had a phenomenal freshman season and all of that. But that's the culture. It's if you can't handle that, you're not going to be fit at that place. And again, every single one. It's amazing that the elephant in the room is a lot of teams in the top 20 are still not fully comfortable with their starting quarterback.
Yes, correct.
Michigan, Oklahoma benched their guy. Aggies have benched their guy. Michigan is still trying to figure it out. There's so many teams that are ranked teams who aren't sure, and yet ours go down and we're still rocking and rolling. And so it's in today's offenses, that's the stuff that matter. And we haven't even skipped a beat, but we have in a weird way changed the offense a little bit because Quinn, he's not a dink and dunker, but he's a mid-range, 8, he's a throw it 8 yards and let you get your yak. Throw it 20 yards to get a first down. He has every throw in the bag, but Arch, knowing that O-line, probably not had one like Banks over there and having the time, he's launching at 55, 60. So it's cool because kudos to Sark and staff. There's still 2 different quarterbacks. But we didn't blink in a week's time to capitalize on their strengths. And so it's a machine right now, man. And I know we're about to go into conference play. It's a wait to SEC, and I'm all for that. But who's not saying that anymore is the SEC. They realize they're here, man. And this is what we've always heard about Texas football. Even we didn't believe it until this year, but it's go time. And so it's going to be fun to watch them compete. Certainly this week with Mississippi State, we're going to get their best, regardless of what we've seen. I know the line's big again, but we're going to get their best. And then it's hard for me I did not feel good about last week's 46. I felt good about every other one. I did not feel good about that one. But fool me once, shame on, you. Fool me twice, shame on me. If I don't trust that they're going to go take care of business, that's on me. Everything I have seen led by that phenomenal defense. And Anthony Hill, speaking of, I felt horrible that he had the pick 6 called back because that was a phenomenal play. But that defense is balling. And then, of course, that offense is one of the top offenses in the country, regardless of who's under the center or in shotgun. So we keep saying it over and over because it's so true. We don't have problems that some people have from a starting standpoint, and it's getting better every week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's crazy. Sorry, Toss, go for it.
No, I was just going to say the one last thing I wanted to mention about Coach. What you're saying, Quan, is because of what Coach has built, right? What Coach Sark and his team have built, that consistency from last year to this year, Josh, that you were talking about earlier, that so many other teams don't have. You got to give credit to teams that have figured it out. Like a team like Tennessee. They're really they're darn good too, and they had some turnover. This is a new guy playing the quarterback position for them, but they haven't batted an eye. And that team looks Ole Miss looks really, really good. you know that we're getting the respect from the SEC teams because the conversation has become, man, Georgia has a really tough schedule, right? Like they're not talking about our talent and whether or not we can do it. They're talking about how our schedule, which thankfully it's a lot easier than Ole Miss's and Tennessee's and Georgia's in particular. And to me, I said, and I still believe this, if we lost 2 games, we would have a chance to make the college football playoff. But now the way I feel about it is it's imperative that we don't lose more than 1 game to show them that we are that good. And if you want to say go undefeated, I'm right there with you as well. But, it's a challenging conference to play in. We get an easy one to begin with, a team that I think all of us believe we can handle. But the one thing, Josh, I wanted to quiz you a little bit, but Steve Sarkisian, he's obviously been a head coach. He's been an OC. He's been a QB coach. He coached 3 guys that were drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. Do you know who those guys are?
Okay. Mac Jones and Matt Leinart. Yeah, Matt Leinart, Mac Jones,
Carson. 4, I guess. Yeah, but technically Leinart was. We'll throw Leinart in there too. Okay, so there's a 4th.
Yeah, because he was an OC during that time, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So 4.
We're talking about 4 quarterback.
Carson Palmer.
No.
He gets his first opportunity as a head coach at the team that we lost in the playoff to last year. Jake Locker, who ends up being the
8th overall. I was getting there. 8th overall. I was getting there. And
then obviously the 2 guys at Alabama. Tua and Mac Jones. And outside of the injury that Tua has sustained, he's played really well.
Right.
Relatively well in the NFL. But all those guys, the best they played was while they were getting coached by Coach Sarkisian. Leinart, Locker, Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa. So he's got the sauce, man. Like
That's a good point. That's a very underrated acknowledgement right there, dude. Leinart is great. Jeff Fisher wanted him. He didn't want Vince. But Vince truly had the better NFL career. It's just the truth. Even with a coach who didn't do anything. Tua, like you said, he's coming in his own, getting Tyreek, and got a new head coach.
But he also, his head coach is under the Shanahan tree. And on that same podcast that I was listening to, Leinart says, I don't think I figured out how to quarterback in the NFL until I got to year 5 when I was getting coached by Kubiak under the Shanahan tree.
Yeah.
So some of those guys, some of those offensive minds, some of those head coaches and OCs just know how to get the best out of their quarterbacks. And thankfully, we have a guy that does, which is great.
It's great. And you know what? I think, again, yes, there's so many components to going to college football these days. It's not just so black and white. Hey, recruit, develop. You also have to manage funds, monies, NIL, transfers, all of that. And the fact that he's able to hang on to this and keep such a steady ship while not skipping it really hits home that not skipping a beat between Arch and Quinn. They are such different quarterbacks. We have a young gunslinger who's not afraid, who can let it fly. And then we have the older veteran who's a more polished quarterback and a safer quarterback, who was at one point the guy who was ready to let it rip, but has learned to play quarterback, like you're saying, Toss, under Sarkisian. And you talk about Ole Miss and Dart. That's such an interesting thing because the Mannings have come out and been like, hey, we want Arch to be there for 4 years. And on one hand, I'm like, well, if the guy's going to be if he's going to be the first overall pick, he's got to go. Like, I believe that. If you're going to be a top 5 pick, you just got to go. You can't risk it. You can't Matt Barkley this thing. On the other hand, you bring up Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart's been playing for a long time, and it's a reason he looks as good as he does. If you have the talent and you're given the runway, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, it's not a secret why these guys like Mike. It matters. Experience matters. And so I think that's important to keep in mind too. Like, I think, getting Arch this experience is so valuable, but I don't think fans should worry about him being one and done necessarily, because if you look across the board, development is so key. If we want to talk about NFL careers on what you're saying, Toss, they're 2 different sports at times, and it takes times for guys to get acclimated in the right system. Darnold, for them to find the right fit and learn how to do things properly. And I think the Mannings, both of which struggled their rookie years, like Eli Manning was on and off starting with Kurt Warner. People forget. Peyton Manning, the great Peyton Manning, holds the record for most picks by a rookie still. Like, they understand that there's growing pains and it's an acclimation process. So I think that understanding that Sark is one of the best guys to develop is just another, feather in his cap, which is pretty amazing. And I want to talk about our schedule before you in the Mississippi State game. Do you guys feel this way as well? OU's made a change at quarterback, which I'm so happy they're making the change this week
And
because they made the change.
The hell up too.
Yeah, I'm so happy they're making the change. Yeah, I'm happy they're making the change this week so we get some tape on him. And I'm happy Georgia's seeing Alabama so we get to see how Georgia responds to Kalen DeBoer, who's in the past been a great offensive mind, and see what their defense looks like. Because I'm not judging them by the Kentucky game. And I don't want to judge a kid based off coming in, not fresh legs on a whim when Jackson Arnold's supposed to be the messiah there. So do you guys feel the same way about the schedule and that capacity breaking our way?
Definitely. I mean, these are definitely – Bama is going to be their biggest challenge yet. So, like, I guess you game plan them you would game plan Bama similar to how you would game plan us. I was actually going to even ask you guys, if Georgia beats Bama in Tuscaloosa, should they jump us to go number one?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You beat the fourth team in the country. That's a more impressive win from what we've seen out of Alabama. They are a better team right now, and they will be a better team than Michigan.
Even if we just straight up pipe Mississippi State 60-0.
I think it's the respect that we were given.
I actually changed my answer then. I don't think they do then, because ultimately you're going to have the same. Then we play the next, few weeks. But so, okay, maybe they do. And then we go beat Oklahoma. Did we jump them back? It's just going to be kind of this thing.
Well, it's how good do you think Alabama? I believe myself, my own opinion, that Alabama is a different class of team than Michigan and Oklahoma. Personally, anything can happen, as we know in the Oklahoma game, and maybe we get extra points because it's that crazy of a rivalry game. But
yeah.
That's how I feel. Is that
I will
Georgia?
Say this, and I think y'all remember me saying this. I don't think if you win, even as number one, because winning is harder, you got all kinds of elements with NIL and all the above, that you should get jumped. So I felt a little weird about even us jumping them because they still won the game, right? But Kentucky not being a ranked team, us beating Michigan in the Big House, and then the following week, when our starting quarterback went down and our backup quarterback threw 4 and ran 1, I thought it was a deeper meaning. I thought it was a bigger deal from a standpoint of them just going, right now, this is the best team in the country. And so they go beat Bama and we beat them by 60. Does it change? I don't know.
Isn't this funny that we're having this argument, that we get to have this argument finally?
I know, it's freaking awesome. We haven't had this in a long time. And then we go beat, I think that's a great question. But I don't think you change it, because I don't think it was just us beating Michigan. I think it had a lot more elements, our depth, our quarterback situation. We lost starting running backs, and we're freaking still killing it in that way. I think it was a lot of other reasons, which is also why I think the coaches poll originally kept us at 2, because they were like, hey, man, sorry, this happens. Georgia still wins. But the AP, who dives even deeper into, or who's a little less biased, now they're still biased. Coaches are very, but the AP who's still, because there's still AP people who have like 12 votes to Georgia and 5 to this team.
That's the interesting thing is so 2 weeks ago, I think Georgia had like 23 votes, and then last week they had 11. So that just goes to show you, to your point, Quan, it's just they had a bye. So they were like, oh, yeah, we knew Texas was the best team. Now we're okay putting them there in our ranking,
what I'm saying,
because Georgia didn't play.
I don't know that the AP is going to change it, because really it doesn't change. And there's a little bit of element of we take care of business this week. We take care of business versus Oklahoma. Then you have the number 2 team coming into the number 1 team if they beat Bama. It doesn't change a lot, but now the home team's number 1. So it's a lot of reasons. And then if Georgia clearly beats us at home, then it takes care of itself. So I think that's why I don't know that they do. But I want to touch on something before you go, because y'all touched on the management of it dawned on me because I was like, fans, why do you think Arch is leaving? It's NIL, blah, blah, blah. Dude, the UNLV situation.
Yeah.
Well, if they're paying attention to what's happening in NIL and people leaving on that level, leaving at the drop of a dime, that is we now have a kid foregoing the rest of his season because NIL demands weren't met. And so for me as a ball player, as us, as staying involved like we do, we're like, no, he's good, he's happy. But ultimately, in reality, what's happening in that space, I see why they listen to every freaking article that said he was going to leave, because it's kind of a wild, wild west still out there. That's still one of the most bizarre things I've ever heard of. But
in my life.
Full circle, it goes back to Sark's staff, the Manning family, what they're doing, their development, the character that, and this is not a jab at the other kid, whatever. People do what you do, to each your own. But one, I don't think that's going to look very good on the next level to that kid, because you're essentially quitting on your team. But for money reasons, not health, kudos to how they've managed the Manning situation, because I promise you, everybody and their mom has blown up him or someone in his family or somebody he's associated with and offered the freaking mayor or governor role for them to freaking leave, and he's handling it as professional as it gets. Nobody's surprised. But those are the crazy things, and to speak on that piece of it, kudos to the staff on handling that. But going back to the amazing conversation that we get to have at hand, I don't know that they do. If we keep doing what we're doing, we still look that good. We're just passing all the eye tests. And even if they do what they need to do, they're going to get more votes, but I don't think they're going to get enough to jump us, is what I think it would be the situation.
We have one hole. We have one hole. And kind of it was like answered a little bit last week. Our big thing is like, can we get a real rusher? Can we get a real rusher? Can we get a guy that can tote the rock and go for over 100? Guess what? Blue was like, oh, yeah, you guys want that? Hey, Kamara, hold my beer. Like, I'm going for 4 scores. What do you call it, Toss? Gettysburg Address?
It's a Gettysburg, yeah.
It's a Gettysburg, 4 scores. He goes for 4 scores, goes for over 100 yards. At this point, like, take our bias away. Like, who's the most complete team? Who do you have the least doubts about? Mix and match the quarterback. They're still winning football games. The defense. We talked about the quarterback. Barron is the number 2 on PFF right now in the nation. Cornerback. Taff, walk on, by the way, talk about getting the most out of your players, put in the best position to succeed, is a top 5 safety.
Yeah.
Sweat, Murphy to the draft, Broughton, top 25 interior defensive lineman. Colin Simmons, a freshman, top 10. Anthony Hill is a top 5 linebacker, by the way. I think number 1. What a freak athlete he is. Who does he remind you of, Quan? Like,
so impressive. I remind the Aggies, because he committed to them. I remind them all the times that, didn't y'all have him like committed for like half the year?
That's horrible.
No, seriously, dude. They say there may not be one other one that hurts more than that. They lost a kid to LSU as well. I think another defensive guy. Oh, it was a linebacker too. But they said that Anthony Hill, every time they see him, it's literally like a big punch in the gut. And they said that dude is that good. They thought he was. And of course, it worked out for us. And then, by the way, talking about all those top 5s on defense, on offense, we have 7 or 8 different guys with multiple touchdowns already. So that's why they're like, dude, this is freshmen, seniors. Really, that's transfers. But
do you know who our number 1 rated wide receiver is?
Trey Wingo.
Wingo's the number 1 rated wide receiver on our team.
Well, because he's averaging 36 yards a catch.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's insane. And that's why, again, I don't know that we still get jumped, because we're still.
I think you're right. I rescind my opinion, because as long as we dominate, they're not going to bump us down, and it makes it more exciting when the dogs come to DKR and it's 1 versus 2, and they're the
Well,
road team and
and if you
they're
want
the
to
underdog. You know,
you want to take it to another level. There's only really been 2 teams who just haven't flinched yet. Us and Ole Miss.
Yeah, Miami too.
Oh, Miami's done their thing. You're right, actually. Matter of fact, I wouldn't be
think
surprised if
Tennessee
Miami
too.
continue to do their thing. If that quarterback was at Ward, if
Yeah.
he don't
Cam
start
Ward.
getting a little few votes or a little talk, because he's having a pretty
He's
heck of
getting
a
a
season.
lot of. He's getting a ton
I
of
think
talk.
he's current odds-on favorite right now, so he's there.
Not good.
Yeah.
I thought so. I was like, because I told y'all I'm not that good at that betting stuff. I just call it like I see it. But hey, calling it right. No, that dude is balling. He
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah, but Nick's right. Like Tennessee, like the thing is like who's had a tough test? Miami hasn't really had that tough of a schedule. Like Ole Miss, they've been beating up on people, but they've been beating up on the B team. Like Tennessee went into Norman.
B team is you're being kind. You're being very
Okay,
kind.
they're playing who? Furman? Like they're playing like
they're playing the D team. That's what
the
they're
D
playing
team.
thus
Yeah,
far.
Who's that? Who's playing the D team?
Ole Miss hasn't played anyone yet.
Oh yeah.
Cupcake
Oh no.
schedule.
They've been. No, D is very very generous.
What I'll say
Yeah.
is one thing I gotta touch about. First of all, Nick's right. Tennessee, they had the second toughest away game thus far. They went into Norman, said, "Oh, you know what? We're going to talk about these young quarterbacks. By the way, our defense is so good that young quarterback of yours will put in the next one because he can't hang with us." That's what they came into Norman and said. They sat Jackson Arnold down. That's what happened in that game. That's how ready they are. So I agree with Nick that they are a team that has proven it. And who's our toughest win? Oh, we went into it's. We literally said this on the show last week. Texas goes into Michigan. Michigan's not what they were last year. Harbaugh gone. They're cooked. All these guys to the draft. Well, we're like, you know what? Let's pump the brakes a hot second. They have to host USC. Miller Moss, high octane offense with Lincoln Riley. They beat LSU. They can't be stopped. They're coming to the Big Ten like we're going to the SEC. They're coming in hot. They're revamped. They're ready to go. By the way, they had no time in the pocket to do anything, USC. That defense of Michigan, ferocious, stepped up. They won the game outright as the underdog again at home. They beat the next big team that came into their house. Our offensive line, Quinn's pocket, Quan, you and I had a front row seat. Quinn's pocket was clean as a whistle. Cleaner than my jeans.
0 sacks in our game.
I was spilling long cut all over my jeans that in the stands. Like Quinn's pocket was cleaner than my jeans. I'll tell you. And I was getting yelled at by the missus. It was not. I was like, let me have this. You don't understand. It was not a good situation. But other than that, like my point being, like that's how good our O line. We didn't even talk about them. Our O line is so like that victory by Michigan, another feather in our cap. Which is to answer Nick's question. I wouldn't be shocked if Georgia went into Alabama, won, and then jumped us. Like that seems reasonable. But that Michigan win looks that much better after the next big team, quote unquote, that came into their house. Literally, they handled them. They handled them and won the game outright. It wasn't like, oh, close game, played them well. No, they won outright. So I think
we're all
that
Michigan fans
helps
now.
us.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
right.
Every time they
Just
win,
like last year, we were Bama fans.
no, yeah.
Yep.
Every time they win, it looks good for us. I actually, a dude, and again, I get it. Longhorn fans have PTSD, and they're so nervous to be this excited and think, holy cow, talk about potential of an undefeated season or a one-loss playoff season and all that. Like they don't even. They're nervous to do that, and I get it. So they were trying to diminish Michigan. They're like I said, oh, he's bad, and so, dude, I made a bet. I was like, no, dude, I will bet you. He's like, they won't win 6 games. I was like, then put your money where your mouth is. I bet you they do. But they're going to lose to USC. They're going to lose to Oregon. I said, again, I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated during that time, but I will make that bet. And after last week, he goes, they're not there yet, but do you want the Venmo? Because he's like, holy cow, they are that good. They are good. Their defense is good. We talked about the projected first rounders.
They still don't even know who their quarterback is.
Yes.
Like that team won against another playoff caliber team, despite having a quarterback that I think threw for less than 90 yards. How many yards did you throw
30,
for, Josh?
32.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Actually, that sounds ridiculous. I got to double check that. I think that might be ridiculous.
Did you say he threw for 32 yards?
I got you.
Let me double check. Let me thank you. Let me double.
I thought he threw for like 72.
He was 7 for 12 for 32 yards.
Okay, I was right.
Okay, there you go. So Yeah.
They beat USC and he threw for 32 yards.
Well, they ran for like 280 yards
290.
on him.
Oh yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
But dude, I don't, yeah, they did. They did do that. And by the way, the running backs didn't run like that on our defense.
No.
Not a
And
chance.
we got a touchdown call back, and we freaking torched them.
So
So it's
so to me, so again, we talked about it at the very
They
top.
rushed
Like,
for just so you guys know, they rushed for 210 yards less against us. They rushed for 80 yards against us.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, they yeah, and you know what? They were up. They were up, so I think that helps them a little bit. But then they were down, and they still
no,
came
but
back.
they were
via the
down
run.
late. They scored with
No,
basically
I think
30
it's because
seconds
they're not complete. Their offense isn't complete in
Also,
comparison to
how are you
our-
Michigan, reigning national champion, historic program, and you can't get a quarterback?
They never. I feel like they never could. I know McCarthy went in the first round, but I feel like their quarterback situation was always sketch. Am I crazy, or is it always
Well,
kind of
left.
like?
And I'm gonna
can we
tell
can
y'all,
we well like what I did with what I was talking about with Steve Sarkisian, guess what? Jim Harbaugh gets the best out of his quarterbacks too. He is not there anymore. You know, like it makes a difference. I'm not going to say that Orgy would be a completely different guy, or what's the other kid's name? Warren? Is that his name?
Davis Warren.
Davis Warren, yeah. But like, the
but
guy that
Jim
was a
Harbaugh also
quarterback,
gets the
who was
best out
their
of his
coach,
running
is
back.
gone.
Jim Harbaugh is also a hardcore running guy too. And
Sure.
so if we want to talk about Michigan quarterbacks, I think that's kind of their MO. Brady was drafted in the 6th round. He's the GOAT. So it's not like he was at Michigan tossing it around, in the Heisman race either. And so I think that where Sark is known for first round guys and he gets the best out of them and they play their best while in the system of Sark, Brady got drafted that late for a reason, and he's the best quarterback of all time, and certainly at Michigan. And a lot of quarterbacks afterwards, almost game managing type
Shout out,
dudes as well.
except like shout out Chad Henne. He was a baller, but
And he threw it
Actually,
around pretty good. You're right.
I
He
just
was
looked.
good.
I was. He was
Hey, he
fine.
did for
That's
the
who was the
era that
quarterback
he
when
played
Quan
in.
was there.
Era.
Denard
He
Robinson.
did for the
Denard
era
Robinson
that
on
he
the cover.
played in today's standard manager, huh?
Denard Robinson was on the cover of NCAA 14, so that's their
But
quarterback.
he's a runner. He's a
He was.
runner. Like when Quan was there, when you were there, Q, the quarterback was Chad Henne, right? Like that was
Yeah,
like,
and he threw it to Braylon Edwards, and he had some good stuff. But
Did he
it
have
still
Manning?
wasn't.
Did he have Manningham? Who else was on that team? What other receiver was on that team?
He Manningham's on that team.
Yeah, no, it was
Wait.
a bomb crew. Like they had a great receiving core, but again, you take away that year, and it's just it makes sense. Honestly, that's how you defend. And again, it wasn't like even old boy from Michigan. He didn't throw for 400 yards in Natty. They utilized those great running backs, that O line. He made great throws to that great tight end. It's Big Ten ball at the end of the day. And they did it well, and they had a phenomenal defense and O-line, and I think it would have been a different game, maybe a little biased if they played us with our run defense, but regardless, they got there and took care of business, and that banner was cool in their stadium. We want one, that's for sure.
It was kind of sweet. I can't deny that. I mean, before we get into like this actual game and close out, that would have been a great matchup. Just looking back, like that was strength versus strength, man.
Like, fellas, it would have been epic.
Tavondre Sweat in the middle against Blake Corum. That's like that's the battle for the ages, in my opinion.
I tell you what,
shout out
in
to
my
Sweat,
opinion, if that game happened, even though T Sweat still got drafted pretty high, if that game happened, both of them get drafted higher. And that's how confident I am in just how they would have showed up, what they would have done to that run defense. Because we saw what this defense did to the run offense. Now, different linemen, certain levels of it, but 80 versus 2 freaking, what was that?
Yeah.
290? I mean, that's a massive difference. So our run defense, we can fill a hole. So it'll be nice, but whatever. Let's go on in this year. Let's take care of it this year, and it'll all be good.
Absolutely. Give me, Toss, we'll start with you, then we'll go Nick, then you, Q, and then I'll close this out in this segment. What's one thing, we did this last week, I thought that was nice. One thing that you saw a little bit last week that you want to see more of, and one thing, if there's anything that you still haven't seen that you're still looking for, because it's still early, he's only played 4 games. Is there one thing, and if their answer is no, But there's one thing that you're also looking for that you really haven't seen much of yet that you'd like to see in this one.
There's not too much I can pull out of my tush in this one right now to come
That's
up on the
fine.
spot.
Well, it's hard. I mean, when they're covering 46-point spreads.
Yeah,
what do you
I'll say sustained game-to-game play from Jaden Blue coming back from the injury would be nice, right? One game is great. He got the Gettysburg, he got the 4 touchdowns. Again, it was ULM. Like, I'd like him to continue that production, to continue to tote the rock. Interestingly, like, he's missed a game and a half basically, and he is 4th on our team in receptions. So just goes to show you, like, quietly putting together a really, really good season. And we haven't seen the best of Jaden Blue yet. And I expect some great things for him in this game. I think it's just going to be a continuation of where he left off from last game. So another 100 plus, maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns from him. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I said it last week, and I think same thing here. Let's get some explosive plays going on special teams. Just feel like it's a little quiet over there. Silas Bolden's electric, so he's due to break 1 at some point in this season. Maybe let's do it this week.
Mm-hmm. Mine is not so much what I want to see. I just want to see more of it. Continue to control the line of scrimmages. And I'm talking about that from a big picture standpoint. If you do it this week, they're going to be in big trouble. I think we're playing their backup quarterback now, old boy from Baylor that transferred, Chapin. I think he went down. So you control the line of scrimmage with a quarterback's first start. Good luck, especially with that defense. But big picture, looking down the road, that's what win those massive games where you're playing in Dallas. You know, the more physical team wins, and certainly at home, even after that, it will be won or lost in the trenches, in my opinion. And if we continue to progress, when I say we keep getting better, we were getting hurries. Now we're getting sacks, and now we're causing that level of pressure. Now we're causing so much, so many issues. Anthony Hill is dropping back, and they're not seeing him, and he's getting pick sixes. And hell, we've gotten out of 4 games, I think we got an interception in all of them. And so that happens with different skill positions, but it happens because of the D-line causing issues for the O-line and the quarterback. So not that I want to see anything new necessarily. I just want to see more of what we have been seeing as we get into SEC ball and competition gets better.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to see more sacks of the quarterback. Lafau, Hill, and Simmons, our underclassmen, all have 2 sacks populating the team, but we have 7 different players with an interception in 4 games. And I would say I would love a little more pepper in Arch's game. We're seeing the sauce. We're seeing him sling it. But I would like to see him just not be like, I don't think there's anything wrong with a dink and dunk, man. That's how you control the clock and win games. We know you could sling it. We know Bond, Bolden, and Golden could beat everyone down the line. But like, I want to see Bond go for like 8 for 80. Like, that would be like an awesome stat line for me.
Yeah, if Arch ends up playing this game, I would like to see one of those long, methodical, pick apart the defense drives. Because from what we've seen, it's explosive play, it's explosive play, it's explosive play. It's like, that's fine and dandy and it's exciting. But honestly, my favorite drive of the season was when Quinn came in there against UTSA and just pass. Like, and it was like 8 passes and he was completing it to different guys. And it's just like every part of the field, letting them do their thing. I feel like that speaks about more of a maturity for a quarterback than anything, that you're making the right reads and you're spreading it out. And, it's just, I don't know, for me, that was more entertaining.
Oh, go ahead, Quan. Go ahead.
I'm about to say, I hear y'all, and I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate.
Go for it.
Please.
Listen, when we're done with this, I'm going to have to go home. I'm going to have to hit Mopac. Well, guess what? I can get home on 360. I can take a back road. I can go 35. I can go 130. But if Mopac has no traffic, why in the hell would I take any of those routes? So if Arch can go at 50 yards down the field and cut the field in half, the hell with all of that.
No. It's a great point.
Plays is what it's about, baby. So I get what you're saying, and it is a beauty to watch Quinn carve up a defense.
I think
if we can make that, and because there's a bigger picture, it's 120 out there. If you score in 4 plays, your offense is rested, your defense do their things, they go 3 and out. It just beats the other team down. So it's
Right.
deflating the good old momentum and all of that. So I
I know.
don't
I know.
disagree, but I do disagree.
Well,
I know
let's wait.
exactly. Hold on, Toss. I know exactly what you're saying, and like I totally agree with that. The point for me is that it's more of an experience thing for Arch to gain now, because I'm looking at these games, to be completely honest, as practice games, getting him reps, getting him experience, and he's never been in a situation where he has to actually go down the field and drive 80 yards where he can't just hit explosive play. I want to see that done now in these easy like tests that he has until before he has to get to the Georgias and before he has to get to the Bamas next year. But your point is very valid.
Well, 'cause
No,
go ahead, Josh.
it definitely is. But I agree with you, Nick, from a development standpoint, and that's what we really want for Arch right now, because we want him to be our starting quarterback next year. In that ULM game, the most interesting and exciting drive for me was it was later when Wingo caught that touchdown pass. I think it was like a 25-ish to 30-yard touchdown pass on the right side of the end zone. It was opened up because there was a fake bubble screen to the right. The DB was in cover 2, and the safety cheats down, and Wingo ends up wide open in the end zone. And the reason why that was there was because earlier in the drive, we had hit the bubble screen on the outside to Bond, or I can't remember exactly to who it was. All that to say, things can get really easy schematically for Arch, and sometimes finding the open man is playing better basketball than going isolation every single play. And if you can know how to take the easy bucket and play the defense as it comes to you, I went basketball comp there because that's my game, that's my dojo. Like, it's just important to know how to do both of those, because one of the golden catches over the top, sick catch for him, contested, 2 DBs back there, ball's not thrown perfectly. It might be Arch's third pick going the other way. So all that to say, like, if he's got all of it, he can do so much of it. But Sark, as we've been talking about this entire show, can do a lot of that work for him. And I just want to see him know that he has that. He opens up the bag of tricks. He's got the deeper bag.
You're right, and I think those bombs open up the bag of trips. So ultimately, what I'm translating into is this: our 4th leading receiver is Jaden Blue. So you run the deep route, you blow out. When you hit a couple of those, they're all sprinting because they know what's up. And then Jaden Blue come out of the backfield and he gets a 15, 20-yard catch.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that piece of it. And I do know from a progression standpoint, they know what's up. The number one issue for a DP is like, do not get beat over the top, which is really hard with our crew because they all run 4.3s. So yes, I get what you're saying, but hit a couple of those and then drop it down to Jaden Blue, and he makes one guy miss and he gets a gain of 30.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the great thing is we have so many weapons that we have everything. We can do anything. We can literally do anything.
We're arguing very first world problems here, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's literally arguing first world problems. It's one of my favorite exchanges. Quan about to go into his like analogy, and Nick's like, "All right, dude, I know where you're going with this. I get what's about to come.
Hitting 60-yard passes.
Work your game. Gentlemen, always an absolute pleasure. Quan, Nikki Snacks Kreider, Alex Tasopoulos, Josh Fisher. Horns up talking Texas. Let's go to 5-0. I know we feel like it's a gimme game. Maybe it should be. Let's take care of business. Good teams win. Great teams
cover.
That a boy. There we go. Get your
horns
up.
Cover up.
We'll see you guys next time. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.